All right, so there's big news in government contracting. A memo just came out that's put the brakes on new GSA-funded contracts. And needless to say, it's causing a lot of confusion out there.
Yeah, the General Services Administration, or GSA as most folks know it. They handle procurement for the whole federal government. They buy everything from office supplies to, complex IT systems.
Yeah, they're like the government's Amazon. But this memo has really thrown a wrench in the works, and we're going to try to unpack it all for you
Are
today.
diving deep into an article from Washington Technologies called GSA Procurement Pause Sparks Confusion. And that title really sums up the mood right now.
Okay, so first things first, what exactly does this memo say? It was put out by Stephen Ahikian, he's the acting GSA administrator, and it basically puts a stop on new awards, task orders, modifications, the whole nine yards. But there's this one phrase that has everyone scratching their heads.
Exactly. GSA-funded obligations. And that sparked a ton of different interpretations. What does that actually mean on the ground?
Right, like say the GSA buys something for another agency, does that count as a GSA-funded obligation?
And what about renewals
Mm-hmm.
or extensions on existing contracts? Does the pause apply to those too?
It's all pretty unclear right now, and the memo doesn't really clear things up.
Yeah, this lack of specifics is causing a lot of uncertainty for businesses, especially the ones that really depend on government contracts. They need clear guidance to be able to make smart decisions.
And to add to the confusion, the memo specifically mentions diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI contracts that are procured through the GSA Schedules program.
Oh, and by the way, GSA schedules are basically these pre-negotiated contracts
Mm.
that government agencies can use to buy goods and services. They streamline the whole procurement process and make it easier for businesses to sell to the government.
But here's the thing, the memo kind of seems to suggest that other types of spending through GSA schedules, those might be allowed to continue.
It's almost like they're targeting DEI initiatives specifically,
Hmm.
which is raising some eyebrows and concerns.
Yeah, the Washington Technology article that we're looking at, it highlights a lot of anxieties from folks in the industry. People are worried about how long this pause will last, the impact it's going to have on small businesses especially, and the potential for money to be lost. If projects are put on hold.
Imagine you're a small business owner. You're expecting a GSA award in the first quarter. You've already hired more people, invested in new equipment, maybe even leased a bigger space. And then bam, everything's on hold.
That's got to be a total nightmare. These businesses are just left hanging, not knowing what to do or how long this is all going to last.
And it's especially worrying because, small businesses, they often work with tighter margins. And they rely a lot on that steady stream of income.
It's like a ripple effect. It could have serious consequences not just for these companies, but for the wider economy, too.
And GSA is not the only agency hitting pause right now. The Washington Technology article also mentions a similar memo from the Army. They're putting a stop to new solicitations, awards, even changes to existing contracts.
Yeah.
And they haven't said when this freeze might end.
So we're seeing this trend, multiple agencies pulling back on procurement. What do you make of that?
Well, if you look at the big picture, it seems to line up with what the new Trump administration wants to do. This administration has been signaling a change in focus, and these procurement pauses might just be part of that.
But the big question on everyone's mind is this even illegal? Can they actually just stop spending like this?
Well, now we got to talk about the Impoundment Act of 1974, which basically puts limits on the president's power to override spending decisions that Congress has already made.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't legal experts, can you break down the Impoundment Act for us?
Sure. The Impoundment Act came about after the Watergate scandal. It was a crazy time. Nobody trusted the government. And the act was supposed to stop a president from just withholding funds that Congress had already decided to spend. It was all about making sure there was a balance of power between the different parts of the government.
So are these procurement pauses maybe violating that balance?
Some legal experts say they might be. They see this as part of a pattern of the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB. Like, they're overreaching their authority by making spending decisions that should really be left to Congress.
And to make things even spicier, the article mentions Russ Vought. He's Trump's pick for OMB administrator. And he said he's not so sure the Impoundment Act is even constitutional.
It's a really complex legal issue, and it could have some big consequences. If these actions are challenged in court, it could set a precedent for future administrations and really change how government spending works.
This is definitely something to watch closely. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much more to unpack. Feels like we're on shaky ground here. This whole GSA procurement pause is raising so many questions, not just about the immediate impact, but like
Right.
the bigger picture of government spending and the balance of power, you know?
Yeah, it's a reminder that these aren't just, abstract legal concepts. We're talking about real-world consequences here for businesses, for people, for the whole government.
You mentioned that there might be legal challenges to the Impoundment Act. That sounds like a big deal. What are legal experts actually saying?
Well, the main argument is that these procurement pauses are basically the executive branch impounding funds, which is exactly what the Impoundment Act was trying to stop. They're saying Congress has the power of the purse, not the president, meaning Congress gets to decide how the money is spent.
So by stopping spending that Congress already approved, are they going too far?
That's the debate. Critics say these pauses are the OMB overreaching, and they're saying we need to look more closely at the OMB's power here.
What about the other side? Are there people who think this pause is necessary?
Oh yeah, definitely. Some folks argue that the president has to make sure we're being fiscally responsible, and that these pauses are a way to cut down on wasteful spending. They point to inefficiencies in government procurement, and they say we need a timeout to review these contracts and make sure taxpayer money is being used wisely.
So it's kind of a clash of philosophies. One side saying Congress controls the money, and the other saying the president has to manage the budget.
Exactly. And this whole thing is happening while everything's so politically divided, which makes it even more complicated.
We've talked about how this could affect small businesses. But what about that specific mention of DEI contracts in the GSA memo? What are the implications there?
Well, singling out DEI initiatives, it makes people wonder about what the administration's priorities really are. It suggests maybe they're moving away from diversity and inclusion in government contracting. And that could have some big consequences.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it might discourage businesses from trying to get government contracts,
Yeah.
especially minority-owned businesses. It could also mean the government workforce becomes less diverse, which could affect everything, from policymaking to how services are delivered.
So the effects of this pause go way beyond just the budget.
Oh, absolutely. It shows how interconnected everything is in government. Decisions in one area, like procurement, can have unexpected consequences in others, like diversity and inclusion.
Okay, back to the Impoundment Act for a sec. You said it was created after Watergate. When people really didn't trust the government, remind us what happened during Watergate and how it led to the Impoundment Act.
Sure. Watergate was this huge political scandal in the 70s with President Nixon. Basically, his administration was involved in covering up a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. It led to all these investigations. And eventually, Nixon had to resign.
So it was a major abuse of power.
Exactly. And one way Nixon tried to control things was by impounding funds, refusing to spend money that Congress had already set aside for programs. He saw it as a way to assert his authority and push his own agenda.
And that's why they made the Impoundment Act, to stop that kind of thing from happening again.
Exactly. Congress was basically saying, no, we control the money, and the president can't just ignore what we decide.
So if these procurement pauses end up being challenged in court and the Impoundment Act gets weakened or overturned, that could really change the balance of power, couldn't it?
Absolutely. It would be a big shift in the relationship between the executive and legislative branches, and it could make future presidents think that they can ignore Congress's spending decisions more easily.
What would that mean for government spending and accountability?
Well, it could mean essential programs lose funding, important projects get stalled, and the government can't do its job effectively. It could also create a lot of uncertainty, making it hard for agencies to plan and do what they need to do.
It's like a domino effect.
And it all comes back to checks and balances. The Impoundment Act was supposed to make sure that no one part of the government gets too powerful and that the people's voices are heard, through their elected representatives.
This whole thing really shows how decisions made in Washington affect everyone across the country.
It reminds us that we can't just sit back and watch. We have to stay informed, participate in the process, and hold our elected officials accountable.
Okay, so we've talked about the legal stuff with the Impoundment Act and the challenges it might face. But let's zoom out a bit and talk about what this GSA procurement pause could mean for the economy.
Yeah, we need to look beyond the immediate impact on government contractors and think about the bigger picture.
Government spending plays a huge role in our economy. When you have a sudden stop like this, what kind of ripple effects might we see?
Well, the first thing you'll probably see is businesses that rely on government contracts taking a hit, like we've talked about. This could be small businesses struggling to stay afloat, or big corporations having to change their plans, and maybe even lay off workers.
And that's just the beginning, right?
Exactly. Those job losses could lead to less consumer spending, which could then slow down economic growth in some areas. It could also affect innovation, because businesses might not want to invest in new things if they're not sure about government funding.
It's a chain reaction that could spread throughout the whole economy.
And depending on how long this pause lasts and how it's actually done, it could also affect the government's ability to provide basic services. If agencies can't get the things they need, it could disrupt all kinds of things, from infrastructure projects to healthcare.
So it's not just about the budget numbers.
Definitely not. It's
Yeah.
about real-world impacts that could affect everyone.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, but there's one more thing I want to talk about. The potential chilling effect this could have on innovation in government contracting.
That's a really good point. Uncertainty doesn't exactly breed innovation.
Right. If companies, especially smaller ones, don't know what's going to happen with government funding, they might not want to invest in new technologies or take risks on new projects.
And that could end up hurting the government's ability to adapt to new challenges
Yeah.
and use the latest advancements.
We need a contracting environment that encourages innovation for the government to stay ahead of the game.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance between being responsible with money and creating an environment where businesses are encouraged to come up with cutting-edge solutions for the government.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it feels like we've got more questions than answers. This GSA procurement pause has brought up so many issues: legal challenges, economic impacts, the future of innovation in government contracting.
And like with any complicated issue, there are different perspectives and a lot of nuances.
It's clear that we need to stay engaged, informed, and keep asking tough questions as this all plays out. This feels like a turning point for government contracting.
Yeah, the decisions that get made in the next few weeks or months, they could really change how the government does business and how our tax dollars are spent.
And it's not just about the money either. It's about the principles, you know?
Right, the balance of power
Mhm.
between the different parts of the government, the role of the OMB, transparency and accountability. All these really important parts of our democracy are being tested.
It's like this GSA procurement pause has revealed a whole bunch of connected issues.
Yeah, and it's forcing us to ask some hard questions
Yeah.
about how our government works and what we wanted to prioritize.
Let's take a step back and think about what all this means for you, the listener.
Even if you're not directly involved with government contracts, this affects everyone.
Government spending touches all of our lives through the services we use, the infrastructure in our communities, the policies that shape our world.
So we all need to understand how these decisions are made, who's making them, and what impact they'll have on us.
And it's not just about understanding, it's about being involved.
Right. We need to be informed citizens, asking questions, holding our elected officials responsible, and speaking up for what we believe in.
Okay, let's switch gears for a minute and imagine what could happen if this procurement pause leads to a legal challenge of the Impoundment Act.
Okay, let's say a business that was expecting a GSA award decides to sue the government, saying the pause goes against the Impoundment Act.
And let's say the courts agree with the business and rule that the pause is illegal.
That would be a huge deal. It could limit the president's power to stop spending in the future.
It might encourage Congress to take more control over spending.
It could force the OMB to rethink how they oversee things.
But it could also create more tension between the president and Congress.
Yeah, which could lead to gridlock and slow things down,
It's a two-sided coin.
with potential upsides and downsides.
So it's not a simple problem with an easy answer.
Definitely not. It's a web of interconnected things.
Yeah.
And we don't know how it's all going to play out.
But one thing's for sure.
This is a story worth following because it could change the whole landscape of government contracting and how our government works for years to come.
All right, so to wrap up our deep dive, we want to leave you with a few thoughts.
First, stay informed, keep up with the news, follow what's happening legally, and learn about the issues.
Second, talk about it. Talk to your friends, family, coworkers. Share your thoughts, ask questions, think about different viewpoints.
And third, don't be afraid to speak up. Contact your representatives. Tell them what you think. And support the policies you believe in.
Because at the end of the day, the future of our government depends on us. We have to be informed and engaged.
Knowledge is power.
So keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep fighting for a better future.
That's all for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.